Now that we have completed the task of data conversion, of course it's interesting to see the actual data. Quick process. To do that, we will use 3D Slicer application that we installed in the setup step of this tutorial. So I'm going to launch the 3D Slicer application, and I'm going to use the dicom browser to import the data set that we have just created. So I'm going to point it to this directory, and this will import both the source dicom images and the segmentation represented as dicom into my local dicom database. So now, if you look at the list, I have just one patient. This patient has one study, and this study consists of two series. One is the MR imaging series that we've been segmenting earlier, and another one is the result of segmentation that we produced. So I'm going to select the segmentation result and click Load button. So now you can see this message, which basically tells you that, hey, your segmentation depends or was done on this MRI series. Do you want to load the image? And of course it makes sense, because it doesn't help to look at the segmentation without the context. So I'm going to click Proceed. And now you can see that both the segmentation and the image that I was segmenting are loaded into 3D Slicer. So now I can use all of the capabilities of 3D Slicer to work with this data. And as you can see, the color is preserved, the spatial location is preserved, and if I go to the segment editor module and mouse over this region, I can see that the information about what this segmentation is also preserved. I can see that it's an anatomical structure and specifically brain ventricle. Next, what I'm going to do is to load another data set, which you can also download if you follow the links in the tutorial. I downloaded this data set from the QN head neck collection. You can learn more about this data set if you go to this page and if you follow and read this paper. So I'm going to import this data set that is including a series of PET image acquisition. It includes segmentations of the primary tumor and various affected lymph nodes. It also includes the measurements that were done over the segmented structures. So all of this is represented using dicom and now is being imported into my local database, local dicom database. This takes a little bit longer because this is a larger series. Okay, so again, I have this new patient. I have one study for this patient, and you can see that this study consists of a PET series, it consists of CT series, something else, structured report, and various segmentations. So what I'm going to do is select this structured report and click the Load button. Now remember that as part of the setup, I installed the quantitative reporting extension, and that's the extension of 3D Slicer that can make sense out of this data and pull all of the dependencies alongside with the structured report into the main application. Now that this process is completed, you can see that the PET series, after applying the standardized uptake value correction, has been loaded, and you can see also the overlay of the segmentations, multiple structures that were segmented for this patient. Next, I'm going to go to the quantitative reporting extension, select the loaded data set here, and enable crosshair. So now what I can do is go over the structures that were segmented for this particular patient. I can automatically scroll to the location of the structure. Of course, I can also see it in 3D. And you can also see that I have various types of measurements calculated over these segmentations. So I know what is the mean signal over the region of interest, what is the distribution of the pixel intensities, and so forth. All of this data, measurements, segmentations, images, were loaded from DICOM. And all of them are accompanied by the metadata, which is critical for meaningful analysis of this data. So, for example, for the segmentation results, I know what structure is segmented using SNOMED terminology, and for the measurements, I know what are the quantities and units assigned to these measurements.